Announce the IS. Interesting fight. Very, very interesting fight. I think there is someone that's really gone under the radar is Duplessis, actually, to be honest, because he's an ex-KSW fight a champion, which is the major promotion in like Russia and things like that. And there's another organization that I can't remember. Is it EFC? I think he is.
Yes.
And he was a 2-weight division EFC champion.
Yeah, he was in the EFC Africa, which is...
It's the South African kind of major promotion, like Eternal MMA is kind of the one in Australia.
Yeah.
Look, he comes around with a lot of hype, but he's largely underrated.
Yeah, he's 27 years old. He's freakishly jacked dude. He's a second-degree black belt in kickboxing. And he's fought also in welterweight. And he just flattened Trevin Giles with just one punch, and it was insane. It was right off the cage as well in the second round, and everyone went whoa as well. It just stunned the whole crowd, and he won one of the performance bonuses of the fight. I feel like he's important because he's a rising prospect, and he said in previous interviews that he wants to be the first ever South African champion, because I don't think there are many South African fighters in the UFC.
Not many.
Not many. They're very few. So, I mean, I reckon I could potentially see it one day if he just gets pushed. But I don't. But the reason why everyone was quite impressed with him as well, because when he first came into the UFC was on Morales versus Sanhagen fight night, where he's knocked out Marcus Perez within the first round. So now he's got another knockout. He's the type, and when you come into the UFC for the first time, and you're not already knocking him out, there's a quicker pathway to the rankings than someone who comes in and just wins by decision, because it comes down to your marketability, your fighting style, and also your likability from the audience. Right now, he's a young prospect and he's doing everything right.
They love highlight reels.
Yeah. Especially the knockout highlight reels.
And he did very well to knock out Giles. I would probably like for him not to be rushed too early, because technically he's only really had 2 fights in the UFC.
Correct.
And actually, he doesn't have a proper I looked up. He doesn't have a proper Wikipedia page even yet. I didn't know Wikipedia has rules. If you're an MMA fighter, you need to have 2 fights in a major promotion like ONE or Bellator or the UFC or Invicta in order for you to like be allowed to have a proper fight page on Wikipedia. Yes, you have to have 2 or more fights.
But if you go onto a place like Sherdog, they got everything.
He's on Sherdog and Topology, of course. Yeah. But Wikipedia, they don't have them. That's the thing. Yeah. So it's quite, even though he's got really good performances and things like that, and he comes from a good background in terms of his own, the South African circuit and things like that, I think he needs to just have a little bit more time. I don't know who he fights next, but he's someone to watch for sure. He's underrated for sure. Really, really good fight to see. Because we brought up Islam Makhachev and that fight card against Thiago Moses. Now, there's another fight I'm really interested in, and I'll be interested to see your take on that as well. So we've got Rodolfo Vieira versus Dustin Stoltzfus. That's an interesting fight for me personally, because Vieira has transitioned from Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and done very well to enter the UFC with the amount of fights he's had, right? He's got a really excellent Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu background. I mean, his accomplishments at ADCC, they speak for themselves and things like that. He's a multiple-time Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu champion in Brazil and things like that as well. So he's very, very good on the ground. He's got an incredibly muscular physique for someone of his weight class, and I have no idea how he makes weight. But in his last fight, he lost to Anthony Hernandez, and that first round was very strange how quickly he burnt out. Yeah. And I think maybe it was an issue of conditioning and less of an issue of his physique. I think I just don't know how it happened.
Yeah.
I don't know how he burnt out so quickly.
Not even that, but you lose by submission, especially when you're a 4-time Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion and a 7-time World Cup champion. Come on, man. It's a bit of a strange way to go. So I definitely reckon, again, it's, what can I say, is like, when you're a BJJ black belt and you're competing in mainly BJJ your whole life, you got to understand, like, when it goes transition into UFC, it's not, you're not wearing a gi or wearing a rash guards or all that. Everything's there. It's on the line, and all the fights standing up. There's BJJs. If you have a strong ground game, that's a good place to start. But then to go straight away from that into the UFC, it doesn't kind of cross over that well. Because you got one section of it just nailed down. You need to have, kicking and striking and understand distance control, and there's so many more, and pace, and so many more things that go into factor into it, especially when you're doing it later on in your life when he's 31.
Yeah. Doesn't look 31, by the way.
No, he does not. He looks like he's still in his early 20s, for crying out loud. But
yeah. I mean, with Rodolfo Vieira, he's an interesting fighter because he's only got one knockout on his record. The rest of his other wins is 7 wins. The rest of them are all by submission.
Yeah.
Like, naturally, because of his really amazing grappling pedigree, right? Which directly translates over to MMA very well, since 90% of most fights go to the ground. So he's very, very good there if he just pulls guard, or if he manages to strike and then pull the pressure and take his back. He's very good at controlling the opponent and then squeezing and submitting them. It was very weird to see him getting submitted himself by Anthony Hernandez. And it was mainly just due to exhaustion. He was so exhausted, he didn't even fight the choke. Yeah. It just got sunk in, and he was like, okay. He was like, okay, I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm out. It's, I think that performance has probably affected a lot of people's idea of Vieira. But I think Vieira has got a bit of a mismatch himself against his next fight against Dustin Stoltzfus.
That's what I think so as well. I feel like Dustin will probably have this one.
No, I don't. I think Vieira will win.
Really? Okay. I put my money on Dustin.
Really?
Yeah, the reason was because of his kickboxing pedigree and his kickboxing ability, and obviously the fight's going to start standing. I reckon he's going to try and do everything he can to keep it standing and put him away. Plus, he also too is coming off a loss as well, so I reckon he's got something a little bit more to prove.
To Kyle Dorcas, yeah. I mean, Dustin, they're both coming off a 1-fight losing streak. Vieira losing to Anthony Hernandez due to guillotine, and then Dustin Stoltzfus, he lost a decision to Kyle Dorcas. But I think Dustin's a little bit too green in terms of his competition, to be honest. He's only had 1 fight in the UFC, if you're not counting the Contender Series, and he lost it. And in the Contender Series, he did beat his opponent by slamming them, but it was mainly due to arm injury, right, in the first round. So there's a few questions around Dustin for me. I think Dustin's good on the feet and things like that. And I know that he's very good on the ground as well, because, in his fight before the Contender Series, his last win was by a twister, which is not a common submission. You have to be quite adept on the ground in order to actually pull those off. He didn't do it in the UFC, but the only 2 people that come to mind in the UFC that have pulled that off is Korean Zombie and Bryce Mitchell, who are very good on the ground. So I think Dustin's probably a bit too green, I'll be honest. I think Vieira has had less time in MMA, but he has had, if you look at his record, he's 109 in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu competitions, right? I think Vieira has just experienced competition way more. They're similar height. I think Dustin's only 1 inch taller. Similar reach. Vieira's got power. He's a big guy. I think he'll smother Dustin. I think he'll submit Dustin Stoltzfus. Yeah, I think he just needs to be wary of taking strikes from someone that's good on the feet like Dustin.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think Vieira will submit Dustin in the second round.
Okay. You say second round submission?
Second round submission.
I'm saying second round knockout.
By Dustin.
By Dustin, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, sweet.
I reckon we can finish up.